Hi gamers, I'm CCC Fire, and yesterday, Grinding Gear Games revealed all 12 ascendancies that will be in Path of Exile 2. In this video, I'll be going over each ascendancy and everything we know so far about the ascendancy. I'll also be giving my opinion on each ascendancy, as well as providing context to some similarities to mechanics in Path of Exile 1. Ascendancies in Path of Exile are subclasses that grant access to an ascendancy skill tree, unique to the ascendancy. In early access, each available class will have 2 ascendancies. At full launch, we will have 3 ascendancies per class. Ascendancies can be unlocked by playing through ascendancy trials found in the game. The Path of Exile 2 endgame content reveal has more details about this. From interviews with Jonathan Rogers, one of the 2 game directors of PoE 2, it's been confirmed that we will have a total of 8 ascendancy points to spend in our chosen ascendancy skill tree. Since there is 1 travel mode in between each notable ascendancy passive, this means that we'll be able to allocate up to 4 ascendancy notables. Okay, starting off with the Sorceress ascendancies. First off, we have the Stormweaver. The Stormweaver has 10 ascendancy notables, marked 1 through 10 on this skill tree. Number 1. Scouring Winds. Exposure you inflict lowers the affected resistance by an additional 20%. In Path of Exile, exposure is a debuff that you can inflict on enemies to lower their elemental resistances. This can lower their resistances into the negatives, and is typically a great way to scale elemental damage, since negative resistances is essentially a damage multiplier. Exposure is exclusive to elemental damage, so there's no physical exposure, and there's no chaos exposure. Number 2. Tempest Caller. Grant skill Elemental Storm. Trigger Elemental Storm on critical hit with spells. Elemental Storm is a spell with the description creates a stationary fire, cold, or lightning storm at a target location for a duration, based on the highest elemental damage type for the hit that triggered the storm. Hits which do not deal elemental damage will not trigger the storm. Number 3. Rain Dancer. Elemental Storm has 150% more cooldown recovery rate. Notice that it says more cooldown recovery rate. This means that it will scale multiplicatively with increases to cooldown recovery rate as well. Number 4. Heavy Snows. Targets can be affected by 2 of your chills at the same time. Your chills can reduce action speed by up to a maximum of 35%. 25% less magnitude of chill you inflict. Chill is a non-damaging ailment that reduces the target's action speed. Action speed applies to every action with an animation. Number 5. Shaper of Winter. All damage from hits contributes to chill magnitude. By default, only cold damage can contribute to chill magnitude, but this notable overrides that. Number 6. Targets can be affected by 2 of your shocks at the same time. 50% less shock duration. Shock is a non-damaging ailment that applies increased damage taken to the target. This can be a very powerful way to scale damage, as increased damage taken is a damage multiplier. Number 7. Shaper of Storms. All damage from hits contributes to shock chance. By default, Only lightning damage contributes to shock chance, but this overrides that. Number 8. Constant Gale. You have Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge is a character buff that grants 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regeneration rate. Number 9. Force of Will. 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 15 maximum mana. Number 10. 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as energy shield. Recoup is a mechanic in Path of Exile that allows you to recover a specific resource over a certain period of time. In Path of Exile 1, by default, recoup occurred over 4 seconds, but it will be longer in Path of Exile 2. The Stormweaver looks to be a pretty powerful ascendancy. It has multiple forms of consistent damage multipliers. However, it's very much lacking in defenses. 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as energy shield is fairly powerful, but it only works for elemental damage, and it only recoups to energy shield. The Stormweaver takes parts of the Elementalist Ascendancy in Path of Exile 1 and the Hierophant Ascendancy in Path of Exile 1. One significant difference that I can see from this is that the Elementalist's respective nodes give a guaranteed chance to shock and a guaranteed chance to chill. In PoE 2, you will still need some way to apply these ailments in order to make use of these Ascendancy notables. Next, we have Chronomancer. The Chronomancer has 8 notable Ascendancy passives. Number 1. Now and Again. Skills have 33% chance to not consume a cooldown when used. Number 2. Unbound Encore. Grant skill Time Snap. Time Snap is a spell with the description manipulates time, resetting the cooldowns of your other skills. Time Snap is going to have a cooldown, which means it will be affected by Now and Again, allowing for some crazy shenanigans. Number 3. Ultimate Command. Grant skill Time Freeze. Time Freeze is a spell with the description releases a large wave that stops time for all affected enemies for a duration. Duration is lower the more times the enemy has had time stopped for them. So in something like a boss fight, this spell will become less effective per use. This will also prevent groups from choosing certain encounters by stacking multiple Chronomancers in one party. Number 4. Footprints in the Sand. Grant skill Temporal Rift. Temporal Rift is a spell with the description passively leaves afterimages of your recent past. Cast the spell to return to the oldest afterimage, teleporting to that location and resetting your life, mana, and energy shield to the values that they had at the time. In Path of Exile, recent means 4 seconds, so the spell will allow you to rewind time back to where you were 4 seconds ago. This could be a very powerful tool for helping you escape when surrounded by enemies. Number 5. Quicksand Hourglass. Every 12 seconds, gain 50% more cast speed for 4 seconds. Number 6. Apex of the Moment. Enemies in your presence are slowed by 20%. Presence in PoE 2 has a base radius of 6 meters, and this distance can be modified. Circular Heartbeat, 30% of damage taken, recouped as life. Number 8, the Rapid River. Recoup effects instead occur over 4 seconds. Overall, this is a very interesting ascendancy. The supports this ascendancy has for cooldown skills is very impressive, but you'll still have to find something to do when your skills eventually are on cooldown. In my opinion, the recoup wheel on this ascendancy seems pretty weak. Spending half of your ascendancy points for 30% recoup and faster recoup just doesn't seem very worth it to me. However, I am a bit biased since I come from PoE 1, and PoE 2 recovery is a lot more scarce and more valuable. The active skills granted by this ascendancy seem to be pretty powerful. And keep in mind, these skills will be able to be supported by support gems. Next, we have the warrior ascendancies. The Titan is an ascendancy with 8 ascendancy notables. Number 1, Stone Skin, 50% more armor from equipped body armor. Number 2, Earthbreaker, 20% chance for slam skills you use yourself to cause aftershocks. Aftershocks are bursts of area damage that occur after the initial impact of the skill causing them. If not otherwise specified, the aftershock will deal the same damage as the initial impact in the same area. Number 3, Ancestral Empowerment. Every second slam skill you use yourself is ancestrally boosted. An ancestrally boosted skill has 20% more damage and area of effect. Number 4, Colossal Capacity. Carry a chest which adds 20 inventory slots. Number 5, Hulking Form. 50% increased effect of small passive skills. Number 6, Crushing Impacts. Your hits are crushing blows. Crushing blows cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. Normal enemies are primed for stun when they have at least 40% heavy stun buildup. Magic enemies are instead primed at 60% buildup, rare at 70%, and unique at 80%. So how the heavy stun mechanics is hitting an enemy builds towards a heavy stun based on the damage dealt. Different enemies have different heavy stun thresholds and durations, with very large monsters having a high heavy stun threshold. Players cannot be heavy stunned. While an enemy is heavy stunned, they cannot act and count as immobilized. Physical damage and melee damage each cause 50% more heavy stun buildup. These bonuses are multiplicative with each other. Number 7, Surprising Strength. 40% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. Number 8, Mysterious Lineage. 15% more maximum life. Overall, the Titan is looking to be one of the most powerful ascendancies in Path of Exile 2. The Titan ascendancy provides very good damage multipliers for slam skills in the form of Earthbreaker and Ancestral Empowerment, and very good defenses in the form of Stone Skin and Mysterious Lineage. Hulking Form has very high potential and can allow for some very unique builds. One more thing to note is that the Crushing Blows mechanic and the heavy stun mechanic are not specific to melee skills. Although melee skills will be able to make the most use of them, ranged skills will still be able to benefit heavily from this. Moving on to the Warbringer ascendancy. The Warbringer ascendancy has 9 notable skills. Number 1. Anvil's Weight. Break armor equal to 10% of hit damage dealt. Number 2. Imploding Impacts. You can break enemy armor to below 0. Number 3. Jade Heritage. Grants skill, Encase in Jade. Gain a stack of Jade every second. Encase in Jade is a spell with the description, consumes all stacks of Jade to grant a buff for a duration that absorbs all damage from hits, up to a maximum based on the amount of Jade consumed. While encased, you cannot move or perform actions. Number 4. Answered Call. Grant skill, Ancestral Spirits. Ancestral Spirits is a minion skill, with the description, each of your totems will summon an Ancestral Spirit minion to fight for you. If the totem that summoned the minion dies, then the Ancestral Spirit will too. Trigger Ancestral Spirits when you summon a totem. Number 5. Wooden Wall. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. Number 6. Renly's Training. Gain 40% base chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value. Number 7. Turtle Charm. 35% less block chance. Can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. Number 8. Warcaller's Bellow. Corpses in your presence explode when you war cry, dealing 25% of their life as physical damage. As a reminder, presence has a default radius of 6 meters and can be scaled. Number 9. Great Wolf's Howl. Ignore Warcry cooldowns. It's hard to say how good this ascendancy will be. Its power level greatly depends on whether totems are good and what exactly armor does. We have armor in PoE 1, but we've never been able to break enemy armor to below 0, so we don't really exactly know what that entails. Jade Heritage has great synergy with totems, since when you're encased in Jade, you can't move or perform actions, but your totems can. So you can imagine encasing yourself in Jade and tanking hits while your totems fight for you. Turtle Charm seems to be referring to the guaranteed directional block that you have while using the skill Raise Shield. Since the directional block is guaranteed, I don't think the 35% less block chance affects that. This will allow you to directionally block all incoming hits and still use your skills. Warcaller's Bellow is looking very strong. Explode is an incredibly powerful mechanic for clearing, and this notable will be very helpful for almost any build. Moving on to the Ranger ascendancies. The Deadeye ascendancy has 8 ascendancy notables. Number 1. Avidity. 30% chance that if you would gain frenzy charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of frenzy charges. Number 2. Thrilling Chase. Benefits from consuming frenzy charges for your skills have 50% chance to be doubled. Number 3. Eagle Eyes. You have no accuracy penalty at distance. 4A, point blank. Projectiles deal 20% more hit damage to targets in the first 3.5 meters of their movement, scaling down with distance traveled to reach 0% after 7 meters. 4B, far shot. Projectiles deal 0% more hit damage to targets in the first 3.5 meters of their movement, scaling up with distance traveled to reach 20% after 7 meters. Number 5. Endless munitions. Skills fire an additional projectile. Number 6. Called shots. You can apply an additional mark. Number 7. Gathering winds. Gain tailwind on skill use. Lose all tailwind when hit. Tailwind is a stacking buff which grants 1% increased movement speed, 3% increased skill speed, and 15% increased evasion rating per stack for 10 seconds, refreshing whenever you gain another stack. Maximum 10 stacks. Number 8. Wind Ward. 3% less damage taken per tailwind. Overall, Deadeye is an incredibly powerful ascendancy. Its synergies with frenzy charge spending skills is extremely powerful. For example, people have been speculating that Rain of Arrows Deadeye will be a solid contender for top DPS in the game. Endless Munitions also looks to be powerful. Traditionally in Path of Exile, additional projectiles is one of the strongest stats in the game. In Path of Exile 2, this stat is even more scarce and is looking to be more valuable than before. The Deadeye's defensive package actually looks not bad. Since the Deadeye is likely to be running an evasion-based defense anyway, it shouldn't be getting hit often, and when it does, Tailwind will be there with Wind Ward to grant you 30% less damage taken, which is incredibly powerful. And this also stacks with how fast you use your skills, and typically Rangers have pretty high attacks per second. I think Deadeye will be a very powerful ascendancy, and I will be playing Deadeye on early access launch. Next is the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder has 8 ascendancy notables. Number 1. Connected Chemistry. 50% more flask charges gained. Number 2. Enduring Elixirs. Life flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Life flask effects do not queue. Normally, the effects of life flasks end when maximum life is reached. So if your life flask recovers 200 life over 6 seconds, but you only have 100 life missing, then you'll miss out on 100 life recovery. This notable makes it so that life flasks heal for the entire duration instead of ending when maximum life is reached. Number 3. Contagious Contamination. The most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. Number 4. Overwhelming Toxicity. Double the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies. 35% less poison duration. Number 5. Brew Concoction. You'll be able to choose one of these skills to use. 5A. Poisonous Concoction is an attack with the description: consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed chaos attack damage in an area. Poison inflicted by the skill has more effect. 5B. Fulminating Concoction is an attack with the description: consumes charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed lightning attack damage in an area, and inflicting lightning exposure. 5C. Shattering Concoction is an attack with the description consumes charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed cold attack damage in an area and inflicting cold exposure. 5D. Explosive Concoction is an attack that consumes charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed fired attack damage in an area and inflicting fire exposure. 5E. Bleeding Concoction is an attack with the description consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed physical attack damage in an area. Bleeding inflicted by this skill has more effect. Number 6. Traveler's Wisdom. Grants 5 passive skill points. Number 7. Running Assault. 30% less movement speed penalty when using skills while moving. Number 8. Relentless Pursuit. Your speed is unaffected by slows. Overall, Pathfinder looks pretty weak. Since we're now limited to 2 flasks, the flask nodes are pretty weak, and even with 50% more flask charges gained, your flask uptime is still going to be low. The slow resistance just doesn't seem very strong, nor does the 30% less movement speed penalty. 5 passive skill points is pretty strong, but for the rest of the nodes, their power levels will be greatly dependent on the strength of poisons and the numerical values for the concoctions. Next, we have the ascendancies for the Witch. Blood Mage has 8 ascendancy nodes. Number 1. Sanguimancy. Grants skill, life remnants. Skills gain a base life cost equal to base mana cost. Life remnants is a buff where you can drink the blood of your enemies to restore your life. While active, enemies you kill have a chance to spawn a life remnant, and critically hitting a target spawns a life remnant every few seconds. Picking up a life remnant grants you life, which can overflow maximum life. Overflow is a mechanic new to Path of Exile 2 that allows you to recover up to double that maximum resource. Number 2. Vitality Siphon. 10% of spell damage leached as life. Number 3. Open Sores. Your curses have infinite duration. Number 4. Blood Barbs. Gain 10% of damage as extra physical damage. Elemental damage also contributes to bleeding magnitude. Number 5. Gore Spike. 1% increased critical damage bonus per 40 life. Number 6. Sunder the Flesh. Base critical hit chance for spells is 15%. Number 7. Grasping Wounds. 25% of life loss from hits is prevented, then that much life is lost over 4 seconds instead. Crimson Power. Gain energy shield from equipped body armor as extra maximum life. This ascendancy looks to be quite strong. Sanguimancy and Vitality Siphon are both consistent sources of recovery. The effect on Grasping Wounds is incredibly powerful. It has the same effect as the unique Flask Progenesis from PoE 1. It's a great defensive layer and makes you very difficult to one-shot. Gore Spike has decent critical damage scaling, but we don't really know how far we can scale life yet, especially since there's nearly no life modifiers on the passive tree. Characters gain +2 life per strength, so any build looking to scale life will probably scale strength as well. This ascendancy has solid recovery and defenses, as well as solid offensive scalars. That's definitely looking to be pretty good. Next off, we have the Infernalist. The Infernalist has a staggering 11 notable ascendancy passives. Number 1, Altered Flesh. 20% of cold damage taken as fire damage. 20% of lightning damage taken as fire damage. 20% of physical damage taken as chaos damage. Number 2, Beidot's Gaze. Reserves 25% of life, plus 1 to maximum mana per 6 maximum life. Number 3, Beidot's Will. Reserves 25% of life, plus 1 to maximum spirit per 25 maximum life. Number 4, Beidot's Hand. Reserves 25% of life, plus 1 to maximum energy shield per 8 maximum life. Number 5, Demonic Possession. Grants skill, Demon Form. Demon Form is a shapeshift skill with the description, shapeshift into a demon, vastly boosting the power of your spells. You gain Demon Flame every second you remain in demon form, causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell, or reactivate the skill. Number 6, Master Darkness. Maximum 10 Demon Flame. Number 7, Pyromantic Pact. Maximum mana is replaced by maximum Infernal Flame. Gain Infernal Flame instead of spending mana for skill costs. Take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when Infernal Flame reaches maximum. Lose all Infernal Flame on reaching maximum Infernal Flame. 10% of Infernal Flame lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds. Number 8, Bringer of Flame. While not on low Infernal Flame, all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to ignite chance and magnitude. Generally in Path of Exile, low means 50% or less. Number 9, Seething Body. While on high Infernal Flame, you and allies in your presence gain 20% of damage as fire damage. Number 10, Loyal Hellhound. Grant skill, Summon Infernal Hound. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your Hellhound's life before you. Summon Infernal Hound is a minion skill with the description, summons a reviving Infernal Hound which ignites enemies near it. The Hound takes a portion of damage from hits for you. Number 11, Grinning Immolation. Become ignited when you deal a critical hit, taking 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage per second. 30% more critical damage bonus. Overall, this is a very high damage ascendancy. Many of these ascendancies cause you to lose life, and it's a significant downside. But if you can overcome it, you'll be rewarded with an incredible damage output. This is a very strong ascendancy, but it's not one that I can recommend as your first character in PoE 2. Deaths in PoE 2 have significant consequences, so it might be best to save up some gear and build this as a second character. Moving on to the Mercenary ascendancies. First we have the Witch Hunter, which has 8 ascendancy notables. Number 1, Weapon Master. 20 passive skill points become weapon set skill points. Number 2, Pitiless Killer. Culling Strike. Culling strikes kill normal enemies if their life is at 30% or below. Magic enemies are instead killed at 20%, rare at 10%, and unique at 5%. These thresholds are checked before the damage of the hit is applied. Number 3. Judge, Jury, and Executioner. Decimating Strike. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% of life before the damage of the hit is applied. Number 4. Witchbane. Enemies have maximum concentration equal to 40% of their maximum life. Break enemy concentration on hit equal to 100% of damage dealt. Enemies regain 10% of concentration every second if they haven't lost concentration in the past 5 seconds. Here's how concentration works. Enemies have less cooldown recovery rate the lower their concentration, scaling down to 50% less cooldown recovery rate when concentration is 0. Number 5. No Mercy. Deal up to 30% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. Number 6. Obsessive Rituals. Grant skill, sorcery ward. 50% less armor and evasion rating. Sorcery ward is a spell that passively manifests a protective barrier which takes elemental damage from hits for you until depleted. The barrier instantly recharges to its full value a short time after it stops taking damage or is fully depleted. Number 7. Ceremonial Ablution. 50% increased effect of Sorcery Ward. Sorcery Ward recovers 50% faster. Number 8. Zealous Inquisition. 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life as physical damage. Chance is doubled against undead and demons. Overall, looks pretty strong. The concentration mechanic seems good against bosses. Furthermore, Zealous Inquisition will help clear when you're not fighting bosses. I think this is going to be a top ascendancy for bossing. The Gemling Legionnaire has 8 ascendancy notables. Number 1. Crystalline Potential. Plus 10% to quality of all skills. Number 2. Implanted Gems. Plus 1 to level of all skills. Number 3. Advanced Thaumaturgy. 30% less cost of skills. Skill gems have 30% more attribute requirements. Number 4. Integrated Efficiency. Grants 3 additional skill slots. Number 5. Gem Studded. You can use 2 copies of the same support gem in different skills. Number 6. Thaumaturgical Infusion. Plus 1% to maximum cold resistance per 4 blue support gems socketed. Plus 1% to maximum fire resistance per 4 red support gems socketed. Plus 1% to maximum lightning resistance per 4 green support gems socketed. Number 7. Adaptive Capability. Attribute requirements of gems can be satisfied by your highest attribute. Number 8. Enhanced Effectiveness. Inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dexterity are doubled. This ascendancy looks to be very powerful once we as a community understand the game better. However, I wouldn't recommend it for your first character. We simply don't know enough about the game to make the most use of the Gemling Legionnaire, and it'll be a while before we do. Finally, we have the Monk Ascendancies. The Invoker has 9 ascendancy notables. Number 1. Lead Me Through Grace. Gain 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield on equipped body armor. Gain 1 spirit for every 15 evasion rating on equipped body armor. Cannot gain spirit from equipment. Number 2. And Protect Me from Harm. Evasion rating also grants physical damage reduction. 40% less evasion rating. Number 3. Faith is a Choice. Grants skill, Meditate. Meditate is a spell with the description, channels to recharge energy shield. Can overcharge your energy shield up to double its normal maximum. Channeling ends when you take damage or your energy shield is double its normal maximum. The skill cannot be used if your energy shield is already double its normal maximum or you have no maximum energy shield. Number 4. I am the Blizzard. Gain 10% of damage as extra cold damage. On freezing enemies, create chilled ground. Number 5. I am the Thunder. Gain 10% of damage as extra lightning damage. 25% chance on shocking enemies to create shocked ground. Number 6. And I Shall Rage. Grant skill, Unbound Avatar. Unbound Avatar is a buff with the description, gain Unbound Fury by inflicting elemental ailments with hits on enemies. Once you reach maximum Unbound Fury, consume it to become unbound for a duration, vastly augmenting your elemental prowess. Number 7. The Soul Springs Eternal. Meta skills gain 35% more energy. Meta skills include Cast on Critical, Cast on Ignite, Cast on Shock, things like that. Sunder my enemies. Critical hits ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. Number 9. And scatter them to the winds. Grant skill, Elemental Expression. Trigger Elemental Expression on melee critical hit. Elemental Expression is a spell with the description, creates a fiery explosion, an arcing bolt of lightning, or an icy wave of projectiles. The chance for an explosion is proportional to your strength, for a bolt proportional to your dexterity, and for a wave proportional to your intelligence. In my opinion, the Invoker seems a little lackluster. It doesn't have the greatest defenses. It doesn't have the greatest offenses. We've seen the Unbound buff in PoE 1. And in PoE 1, Unbound gives you 80% more elemental damage. The buff also gives a guaranteed chance to shock, ignite, and freeze when unbound. However, the buff does not have 100% uptime. I think the meta-skill-centric parts of this ascendancy are the most interesting. Lead Me Through Grace allows you to gain a good amount of spirit without investing in spirit equipment, and this allows for more flexible and more powerful gearing. I don't know, maybe I'm just hating on Invoker for no reason. I don't know, it doesn't seem like the most interesting class. The Acolyte of Chayula has 9 ascendancy notables. Number 1. Ravenous Doubts. Mana Leech is instant. Number 2. Consuming Questions. You cannot recharge energy shield. Mana Leech effects also recover energy shield. Number 3. Plus 10% to maximum chaos resistance. Chaos resistance is doubled. Number 4. Reality Rending. 23% chance to gain 25% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage. 13% chance to gain 50% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage. 7% chance to gain 100% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage. Number 5. Waking Dream. Grant skill, Into the Breach. Into the Breach is a buff with the description, creates a breach around you, allowing you to see nearby flames of Chayula. You are considered to be in a breach while this skill is active. Flame of Chayula. Collecting Flames of Chayula grants the following bonuses. Red flames of Chayula leech 7% of your maximum life to you. Blue flames of Chayula leech 7% of your maximum mana to you. Purple flames of Chayula provide a stacking buff, granting 7% of damage as chaos damage for 5 seconds, and stacks up to 10 times. Number 6. Lucid Dreaming. Effect and duration of Flames of Chayula on you is double. Number 7. Embrace the Darkness. Remove all spirit. Base maximum darkness is 100. For each life or energy shield lost to damage, reserve 1 darkness instead if possible. Darkness reservation lasts for 10 seconds, plus 5 to maximum darkness per level. Number 8. Grasp of the Void. Gain 1% of damage as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. Number 9. Inner Silence. 50% reduced darkness reservation duration. This ascendancy seems pretty good. Mana Leech is instant, and Mana Leech effects also recover energy shield. Is a great form of recovery when using Mind over Matter. It's difficult to say how good the Flames of Chayula will be. It's hard to say how strong the Flames of Chayula are. Although we've seen some gameplay, we don't really know how these things spawn. So it's unknown how reliable it is to get these bonuses. Darkness is an interesting mechanic, but losing all of your spirit is a very significant downside. With how important spirit seems to be in PoE 2, I just don't know if it's worth it. Okay, so that's all of the ascendancies in Path of Exile 2. I am super excited for PoE 2 on Friday, and I hope to see you there.